Hello, everyone. Hope you are doing well. So before we begin, a few announcements. The first one is that please do not send your emails to random email addresses. The only active email address for Misfits is the info@misfits.bet. Please do not email directly to any of the team members. Those emails are not monitored. Okay. So the only monitored email address is info@misfits.bet. Number one. So any concerns, any doubts, any thoughts, any opinions on that email address. No other email address. Second is, I am cognizant of the fact that there are many CAs and economists in this classroom, but I will have to go slow for a few weeks, at least. 90% of the class does not have foundations in economics. They're getting introduced to the subject for the very first time. So please be kind to them. We're here to crack the exam. Everyone will have their own strengths and own weaknesses. So despite your requests, I will be going slow in classes. And it is for the benefit, even for you. I have a problem with the way subjects are taught in this space. So when they teach you history, it's just history. They create artificial silos for some reason, artificial segmentations, ancient, medieval, modern. When they teach economics, that's only economics. Again, segmentations. In our classes, I don't think I will do that because it will not benefit you at all. You need to learn the art of interconnections. That has to be your strength going forward. So please do not ask me, is world history completed or postmodern completed or is international affairs completed? Or will there be separate classes for current affairs? After the completion of syllabus, you yourself will realize that all of it has been completed. Because we will be covering so many dimensions in every classes. This segmentation and the nonsense of segmentation happens when there are different teachers teaching different subjects. So let's play to our strength. From current affairs to economics, completion of all those things will happen. And you will realize this in time to come. And that's the good thing. Because you will be internalizing these concepts without segmentations. What happens is when you learn things in silos, you just look at facts and figures of that specific segment, and then you forget them. But real life is not lived in silos. And this examination is the perfect reflection of that life. Here you learn things as a composite whole, not in silos. So many of you who have been part of coaching institutes in the past, I am not going to follow their methods. They all refer to repeat the topics in the same format. Even in economics, largely in economics, I will not be following that format. That I'll teach you monetary policy, fiscal policy, give you tools. That's not going to happen. That structure will not be followed. And you will realize the beauty of this structure, this method, in approximately a couple of weeks. So stay calm. And get rid of biases if you have any. Now let's watch a video and tell me what's happening.
To India now. India's central bank, the Reserve Bank of India, is all set to meet for 3 days starting today. In the meeting, the central bank is expected to announce its latest monetary policy. Now, all eyes are on the RBI Governor Shaktikanta Das. Will he cut rates or keep it unchanged? State Bank of India, or SBI, one of the largest public sector banks in India, says that the central bank is likely to continue with its pause on the rate hike. SBI argues that strong growth and lower inflation will push RBI towards a rate pause. For some context, the RBI paused its rates in April this year. India's central bank kept the lending rate unchanged at 6.5%. The pause came after the RBI hiked rates by 2.5% since May 2022 in a bid to tame inflation. It is not just the SBI which is predicting a rate relief. A poll of economists conducted by an Indian TV network has also predicted an interest rate pause. As per the poll, declining food inflation will encourage the RBI to maintain the pause in lending rate. Food inflation has declined to an 18-month low of 4.6%.
Of course, it's the old video. I think a couple of months old. Dynamics have changed for food inflation, but what's happening? Pile?
So they are discussing about the interest rate and estimating that RBI will not cut them more, and giving the reason that food prices are going to increase.
Okay. Anyone has a very different view, someone who has no background in economics and want to talk about their views. Even if you did not understand anything, tell me what are your observations? Was that person reading the news making things unnecessarily complicated? If that's the view, tell me about it. Let me cold call someone just to see and view their unfiltered views here. Rajeshri, what do you think? Any observations?
Sir, this is my first class in economics. I couldn't attend yesterday's class and the recording as well. But what I could at least understand is something regarding interest rate, I guess.
Interest rates, okay, that's one word.
Yeah.
But how is it impacting whatever is happening?
First of all, like the video implied that interest rate was supposed to be hiked, increase like interest rate. But when the food inflation became stabilized or something, then the interest rate was at a stable place.
Yeah, things are not that simple, but okay. Fair enough. Sachin, your thoughts?
Yeah. So, Naman, what I felt was, again, not thinking from an economics background, they were just trying to use some complex language just to let people know that RBI is just putting a pause on the interest rates. And again, that thing we discussed yesterday was they don't predict. And now we are 2 months down the line, and now the food inflation is off the shelf, right? So I was just able to relate this to that, with which we studied yesterday.
All right. Makes sense. Makes sense. I think, of course, you will have to do some predictions. In fact, UPSC would want to ask questions along those lines. We will have to give proper reasons and rationales for whatever predictions that we might make, because that's important for us to clear the exam. See, in the last 6 years, approximately 123 questions have been asked from economics in UPSC prelims. 12 questions have been asked directly from the topic that we will start from today. Approximately 13 questions have been asked indirectly from this topic, which means if you can understand the concepts well in few classes, you will be able to solve approximately 20% of UPSC economics paper well. And for an exam which is as competitive as UPSC, 20% is a huge number. One term that the esteemed news reader read was a term called monetary policy. What is it? We keep on hearing the term monetary policy. What does it mean? Tomorrow, if you were to become RBI governor, and there has been many cases, the many IAS officers have gone on to occupy that position. Shaktikant Das, D. Subbarao, Y.V. Reddy, the list is endless. Many IAS officers becoming RBI governor. If you were to become RBI governor, you cannot spend a single day without thinking about monetary policy. What is it and why is it important? Ankit?
So the monetary policy is regarding the rate of inflation, which has to be kept between 2 to 6% by the government. Regarding the inflation, the amount of supply of money in the market and the commodities which are present.
See, that's the problem that we have as Indians. We think very local. Good attempt, and I'm glad you're making mistakes here with me. I didn't ask you monetary policy in context of India. World is beyond India. UK, US. Do they all have that defined goal? No, they have different goals. At least the fundamentals will remain same. The specifics of interest rates will change or inflation will change. Monsi, what is monetary policy?
So, monetary policy is the tool used by the central banks of various countries to basically curb inflation and stabilize the economy. So, the monetary policy has impact on very individuals, from individuals to companies to investors and borrowers.
Okay. See, monetary policy, in very simple terms, refers to the policy set by the central bank to control the supply of money in the economy. Again, notice the word, I use the word central bank, not RBI, or not just RBI. A few years ago, one of the former RBI governor and the current professor of finance at Chicago Booth School of Business, Dr. Raghuram Rajan, he was in news for a very interesting matter. The news headline was that he was being considered for the governorship of Bank of England. Although he dismissed the news later. But is that possible? Yes, of course, it's possible. He had such an incredible experience heading the Reserve Bank of India. And if he were to indeed head the Bank of England, only the country would have changed. But tools in his hands would have largely remained the same. The concepts that he might have used to manage his own workers, his own economists, would have largely remained the same. Because even in Bank of England, Mr. Raghuram Rajan would have affected the monetary policy. In effect, he would have controlled the supply of money in the economy. Almost every country in the world will have central bank. Not sure about Burkina Faso. I don't think they have it. It's an exception. I think for Burkina Faso, Benin, Ivory Coast, Mali, Senegal, Togo, there's something called Central Bank of West African States. That one Central Bank of West African States looks after the affairs of so many countries. But generally speaking, every country has a central bank. So if you were to become the governor of a central bank of any other country, the tools, the methods that we will learn today will have relevance globally, not just in the Indian context. It is RBI in case of India. In case of India, it's the RBI that controls the supply of money in the economy. Can you think of any other example other than RBI who can control the supply of money in the economy? We will learn about it. We'll learn about the RBI, how it controls the supply of money in the economy. Can you think of any other body? Sahil?
Yeah, I think government by providing subsidies on various schemes can also increase or decrease the supply of money in the economy. Yeah, it leads to investments.
Okay.
Thereby,
Yashvardhan, anything to add?
I think industrialists, big businessmen in the capitalist setup.
Yeah, Sahil was right. Sahil is right. Government also controls the supply of money in the economy. It does so indirectly. But how? How does it affect the supply of money in the economy? Can anyone give an example? Harsh?
Sir, by increasing or decreasing taxes, by implementing taxes on various goods and services, that's one of the way the government can control money supply.
Okay. Can you think of any other example? Any other way? You're right. Taxation is one means. Government spending is another means.
Right.
Whenever the government increases its spending, it is also known as expansionary fiscal policy. What does it mean? It means that government is injecting more money in the economy. Can you think of an example of how government has done this in the past? One very interesting scheme is MGNREGA, Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act. It's a wonderful example. When MGNREGA was launched in 2005, what did it do? What is it about? How can this have impact on the supply of money in the economy? Adamya?
Hello, am I audible? So MGNREGA basically is a scheme that ensures 100 days of employment for the rural workers, and it pays some minimum wages to them so that the people who are unemployed, especially in the rural areas, they can have some money in hand to spend, thereby increasing the money flow in the rural economies of India.
Yeah, so it's not just RBI, even government's policies and actions can affect the flow of money in the economy. MGNREGA is a social security measure that aims to guarantee the right to work and ensure livelihood security. How does it do it? It does it by providing at least 100 days of wage employment in a financial year to every household whose adult members volunteers to do unskilled manual work. This program of the government has been heavily criticized. This program of the government has also been heavily appreciated. And we would need at least 20-25 days more to give much more views on this, on the analysis of this program, MGNREGA. But whatever, MGNREGA involves substantial government spending. But now my question is, how does government finance this spending? It does it by two ways. It borrows money. Secondly, it increases the taxes. We'll deal fiscal policy in length in time to come. I'm just introducing it. So whatever government here is doing is fiscal policy. Can anyone tell me what will be the effect of inflation? What will be the effect on inflation because of MGNREGA? But before that, what is inflation? I know many of you are newbies. First few classes will be very slow because this is to be cautiously done. What is inflation? Muskan, any thoughts?
So inflation is basically the rate at which prices rise in an economy in relation to like the supply. If I'm not wrong.
I think generally you understand it correctly. We will do inflation in detail. Don't worry about it. It's a detailed topic. But for now, just understand that inflation is the rate at which the general level of prices, be it of goods or services, it is rising. And because of that, what happens? Your purchasing power falls. Too much inflation can do what? It will cause the same amount of money will buy a small amount of goods or services. What is it doing? It's eroding the purchasing power of money. If the inflation is high enough, it can cause significant economic problems. Not just that, it can cause significant political problems. There are various kinds of inflations. There are various ways and means to tackle the inflation. But for now, just remember that inflation is the rate at which the general level of prices, be it for goods or services, are rising. It happens when more money is chasing the same amount of goods and services. Can lead to increased prices. That's inflation. So to all the newbies studying economics for the first time, don't worry, we are very slow in the initial classes. Just keep on making notes and revising it as and when needed. First few lectures will be very important. With zero background, I can assure you in time to come, you will be expert. So now, can anyone tell me what will be the effect of inflation on MGNREGA? Ratuja?
So the effect would be like there is this conundrum, I guess, between inflation and unemployment. So if inflation increases, there is a more enrollment into MGNREGA. The present situation is in this direction, like there are more people enrolling into MGNREGA because it assures 100 days of employment. And if it does not provide employment, then there is unemployed allowance. So if inflation increases, especially in current situation, if food inflation increases, then there is more employment to MGNREGA. We can see it from another direction, that if there are less economic opportunities in the country, people enroll into MGNREGA.
Okay, now listen to this. What is MGNREGA doing? It's directly injecting money into rural areas. How? By providing wages to rural poor. What will this do? Think logically. This will increase disposable income for a section of the society. What will this lead to? This will potentially lead to increased demand for goods and services. Demand side inflation. If the supply of goods and services does not increase to match this heightened new demand, what happens? Inflation. So inflation will rise in an ideal sense. Can you think of other side effects of MGNREGA? Any other side effect? One side effect that has been noted down is that it will make agricultural work more costly. Think about this. If MGNREGA wages are higher than what laborers usually earn, what will this lead to? This will drive up the wages in rural areas, thereby making agricultural work more costly. This increased cost will then pass on to consumers. How? In the form of higher food prices. We're already seeing this. We in fact saw this in our own economy when MGNREGA was rolled out. From onions to tomatoes, things got expensive. Why are tomatoes expensive today? In fact, there was a news article that McDonald's had run out of tomatoes in New Delhi. McDonald's could not procure adequate quantities of tomatoes. And a few outlets of McDonald's ended up serving products without tomatoes. The taste is anyway terrible, but without tomatoes, it's unbearable. What happened? Why are tomatoes expensive? What is the reason? Himanshu?
Because of like changing climatic conditions, the produce from the supply side, it's not enough to take care of the demand sides. That is one reason. Other reason is that because of the crisis, some people are hoarding as well. So the combined effect is sky high prices.
Many reasons to it. In fact, Russia also has a role to play in bits and pieces. The average price of tomato, I think, surged by over 300%. Tomato today is now more costly than gas. Why did that happen? Because much of India experienced erratic weather patterns in past 6 months. Heat waves arriving early, heat waves lasting longer, and then there is extreme rainfall damaging the crops. Which are the major tomato producing states in India? Andhra Pradesh, Maharashtra, Karnataka. What happened? Floods happened. Because of climate change, India is surely emerging as one of the most vulnerable regions in terms of crop production. This tomato example is an example of supply side inflation. We'll talk about the categorization in time to come. MNREGA inflation was demand side inflation. So MNREGA is the classic example of how government spending led to higher inflation in the economy. But now my question is, how can government control higher inflation? Let's not talk about RBI for now. We'll do it. How can government control inflation? We blame government a lot. Everything is expensive. But we rarely have solutions. What can government do? Pragya?
Good evening, sir. So by launching schemes such as Mahila saving schemes, something like that, so that people can invest more in schemes and the money is sucked out from the economy.
Okay. Oh, let's talk about this tomato inflation or any kind of inflation. On an immediate basis, it can alter taxation on certain goods and services. I think somewhere I read that the tax on fuel, even though it's deregulated, petrol and diesel, it's approximately 260% in India. That's not the case across the world. If tomorrow I'm taxed less, even the cost of Misfits experience will decrease. How? Today, for anyone who enrolls in this program, my accountant has to pay 18% tax, GST, on revenues. But tomorrow, let's say if government brings down GST by 9%, program itself got cheaper. So playing around with the taxation structure is a major way by which the government can deal with inflation. Can you think of any other way other than taxation? Policies, one example was given. I don't know how relevant that program would be, but there are other ways through which it controls inflation. There's something called buffer stocks of food grains, right? Who manages? FCI, Food Corporation of India. I think UPSC is asked one time, under which ministry does it come under? Food Corporation of India. Do you know the answer? Agriculture, Consumer Affairs. Which one? So FCI comes under Ministry of Consumer Affairs, Food and Public Distribution, at least in present context. So FCI buys food grains from farmers at something called minimum support price and stores them. And food inflation begins to climb up due to whatever reasons. Largely, it's shortage of supply of these grains. The government releases these stocks into the market. This leads to increased supply. It helps stabilize prices, control the food inflation. Anyone from Andhra Pradesh? If you were reading newspaper, I think your government did something a few days ago. I'm seeing so many hands raised. Are you all from Andhra Pradesh? Mohan? What did your government do to bring down the tomato prices?
Yeah, sir. Actually, I don't know presently. I don't know about that. But the effect of the inflation
Hold on.
would be the
Hold on. The question is, what did your government do to bring down tomato prices? We've been crying about it, right? The government does not do anything. But do we know what did they do? Shamala, what do you think? What did they do?
So I really don't know about that, but I can make a conjecture like maybe they give subsidies. Like usually they give subsidies like the right bazaar concept is there.
But what subsidies will they give? I mean, in the short term, if they want to solve for this, how will subsidies help? And to whom will they give this? Will they transfer money to your bank account so that you can buy tomatoes? How practical is that? Or will they give subsidies to farmers so that they can grow tomatoes? But will this solve in the short term? They intervened in the market. State government, the Andhra Pradesh state government has something called market intervention scheme. Via market intervention scheme, they purchased tomatoes from the open market. And they disbursed them, distributed them through some bazaars, Raith bazaars, I think. Raithi bazaars, I don't know what it's called. This intervention came in when tomatoes prices had hit 100 rupees per kilo. And one senior government official mentioned that they hope that this market intervention scheme will bring down the tomato prices in the market. This market intervention in Andhra Pradesh was done on an ad hoc basis. This market intervention scheme covers horticulture and other agricultural products, which are perishable in nature. Usually, these perishable commodities are not covered under MSP. Not just tomatoes, even rice. It faced a similar wrath. If you were the government, what would you do to curtail the increased rice prices? Konika, what will you do with rice? You're the Modi government, central government. What can you do to bring down prices?
Yeah, recently they are not exporting the rice, so those
Wrong
rice will be.
Wrong statement. Government of India is still exporting rice. What is the main purpose of government? Can anyone tell me? In reality, in practicality, what happens? If you are Prime Minister Modi, what are you thinking? At this stage, what would Prime Minister Modi be thinking? Rajwal, any thoughts?
Good evening, sir. So I think if I was the PM, I think I would try
It
to.
depends upon the PM also. Yeah. Dr. Manmohan Singh will think differently. Prime Minister Modi will think differently. Perhaps because they're also from. One is a popular leader, the other one was not a popular leader. Did not fight the Lok Sabha elections. See, the main purpose of the government is to win next elections. In the past few years, I have worked with so many leaders, not just in India, but across the world. Regardless of the political ideologies, skin color, the main purpose is somehow to win elections. Anything that happens in the country is a side effect to that goal. Now, as Prime Minister Modi, you want to win next elections. What will you do when you're seeing that rice prices are reaching the sky? You would want to bring it down. For that, what will you do? You'll perhaps ban the export, perhaps. A few days ago, Modi government banned export of several varieties of rice. Elections are due in India. In India, elections are always due. You cannot afford to make people angry over high prices. So Modi ji and his enlightened team of civil servants, they took an action. They decided to ban the export of several varieties of rice. Note the word several varieties of rice. Now, my question is, why Modi ji's government did not ban all varieties of rice? Why just few varieties of rice? Because you want to win elections, you want to ensure the prices are down. Why just ban few varieties of rice? Not all varieties of rice. Daisy?
Sir, India exports almost 40% of the world's rice, and according to some WTO agreements, we can't actually do that because discussions are going on because our country is
What is
so much of
important?
the rice.
Is
We
WTO
thought
important or
first
winning
instead
elections is
we will-
important? Think practically. And we all know how things work out in real world. Is it just because of WTO agreements? There's so many things that we do not export. We have such high tariffs. WTO has been asking us, requesting us to forego of those tariffs, trade barriers, non-trade barriers. We hardly listen to them in many cases. Not just us, even China laughs at WTO. You're right. India is one of the largest exporter of rice, accounts for more than 40% of global shipments. But the ban that Modi ji's government went ahead with does not apply to higher grade basmati rice. It only applies to non-basmati rice, around 25% of exports. Because bans at such scale will surely affect the credibility of India in the international markets. Credibility, very, very difficult thing to earn. The world will think, can India be a reliable global supplier? Today it's rice, tomorrow it could be something else. It takes a lot of time to build credibility. Building markets takes time. Building partnerships takes time. Building supply chain network takes time. Even with this limited ban that we went ahead with, IMF has requested Modi ji's government to reverse this harmful decision. But IMF should also know that there are several elections due this year. There's a national election due in less than 12 months. So he took a practical measure. So the current headline would have been, that is around the news, is wrong. BJP government did not ban rice exports. BJP government banned the export of non-basmati rice, accounts for 25% of exports. 15% of higher grade basmati rice is still fine. People in India are not shouting that basmati rice is expensive. Public is shouting, clamoring because rice is expensive. So here he is trying to tackle both the issues. BJP's restriction on rice exports surely impact global consumers, right? We saw this in Canada, in America, what's happening there. Hoarding, fights, just because of rice. Carbohydrates are so important for people. But it also affects a very powerful constituency. Can you think of that constituency that will hate this decision? This constituency is a good vote bank. This constituency immensely benefit from higher prices of rice. Which is this constituency? Ishan?
Sir, I don't know the exact constituency, but I'm guessing one of the northwestern states of Punjab or Haryana, because they are one of the
By
largest
constituency, I
producers.
mean, who are these people? Farmers. They will benefit immensely if prices are high. Just imagine if you were a farmer in India, Sohana Khan, like Sohana Khan. Just imagine that you're a farmer in India and you get to know that Russia has walked out of something called Black Sea Grains Deal Initiative. How will that make you feel? You should be a farmer who has prepared for UPSC. You should be much more enlightened now. Soumya, what will you think?
I think that there's a demand in the global market, so my exports would increase. I would benefit from that. I would increase the exports.
See, increased prices of these commodities is not just an Indian phenomena. It's a global phenomena. Thailand, Vietnam, these are world's second and third largest rice exporters. By the way, rice is important for prelims. If they ask you to arrange these countries in terms of exports, this would be the list. India highest, Thailand second, Vietnam third. Thailand and Vietnam, they've also experienced the effect of increased prices. In fact, Vietnam's rice was already trading at its highest since 2011. But let's analyze this decision. It's a very important decision. Russia's decision to pull out of UN-brokered Black Sea Grains Initiative. There has to be a question in UPSC around this Black Sea Grains Initiative. I don't think this was asked this year, but can be a good question for means and even for next year's prelims. What is Black Sea Grains Initiative? Anyone knows about this? Aditya?
Yes, sir. Sir, I would like to say that in the Black Sea Initiative, it was between the European countries, USA, Ukraine, and Russia, where Russia give a particular means they said yes that they won't bombard of the particular consignments coming to.
I'm sorry, I have to limit this. Some facts were wrong. I don't want people to learn wrong things. But good attempt, Aditya. Ikshu, what is it about?
Yes, sir. Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a initiative which was brokered by UN and Turkey between Russia and Ukraine to lessen the impact on food prices due to the outbreak of the war between Russia and Ukraine. So it's basically that the countries are allowed to keep sending their exports into the other parts of the world so as to keep the prices of food grains stable. And if Russia actually walks out of it, as we are talking about, then obviously there will be pressure on the.
It's not if they walked out of it.
Okay. And then they walk out of it, then obviously the pressure on the global food prices of grains will increase. It also creates like a leeway for India, Indian farmers, that they, as someone I think rightly mentioned, that their exports can increase in such a scenario.
See, this is the exact reason why foreign policy is so important. It matters so much. And we hardly pay any credence to it. Farmer in Kerala to Punjab to fishermen in Tamil Nadu, it affects everyone. Many times they may not realize or understand who our foreign minister is, but everything is impacting their life. Our weak passport could be another reason why Indians don't travel much. Talk to any European, they will flaunt. Almost every average European will flaunt that they've traveled 17 countries or 18 countries before they turn 20 or 25. Because for them, it's easy to travel. Look at the Schengen area countries. For Indians, that's not the case. So foreign policy is extremely critical. It impacts everyone. As a homework for today, and it's an important homework, immediately after this class, as and when it ends, I want you to look at the world map and identify the countries that surrounds the Black Sea. This is one question that has been asked multiple times in UPSC prelims. Please do this. It's important. See which country is around Black Sea. This region has been in news for a long time. We'll have to change the Zoom setting. Some people are not able to. So please be diligent. Please see, watch your hands. What are you doing with it when you're watching this lecture? It distracts the class. So as a homework for today, it's important. Look at the countries around Black Sea. UPSC has multiple times asked this question. These are free marks in UPSC. It has been in news for a long time. It will be in news for coming months, years. But yeah, what is the Black Sea Grains Initiative? I was on my way from Belgrade to Skopje. Skopje is the capital of North Macedonia when this agreement was signed. I was in Skopje for a press briefing by North Macedonian government for the same. It was important for them also, for some reason. The Black Sea Grains Initiative was launched in Istanbul. Russia, Turkey, Ukraine, and UN. They were key players. Why was it signed? To ensure safe export of grains, related foodstuff, fertilizers, including ammonia, from designated Ukrainian ports to global markets. Even though it's called as Black Sea Grains Initiative, but it has things beyond grains. Foodstuff also, fertilizers also, specific mentioning of ammonia. What was the purpose? The purpose of this initiative was to contribute to prevention of global hunger, to address the global food insecurity issue. Something called Joint Coordination Center was set up in Istanbul, I think approximately a year ago, 27th July, 2022, under the auspices of my organization, the UN. But a few weeks ago, this was in news everywhere. You should be knowing this. Russia took a decision to terminate the Black Sea Grains Initiative. European Union condemned it, rightfully so. EU says that Russia is now illegally blocking Ukrainian seaports. Russia is restricting freedom of navigation on Black Sea. This Russian decision is very important across the globe, for governments across the globe, and we don't even know about it. It's important for families who live in Syria, families who live in Moldova, Bosnia, Albania, Montenegro, North Macedonia. India has missions over there. This Russian decision to terminate this Black Sea Grains Initiative will directly and negatively affect the works of World Food Programme. There's a humanitarian crisis going on in Afghanistan, Ethiopia, Kenya, Sudan, Somalia, Yemen. Even throughout the war, Ukraine remained one of the biggest suppliers of wheat to this program, WFP. All of that is at risk now. This is an example of Russia weaponizing food. There can be a means question. How Russia weaponized food in this war. Wars are not just about with the missiles. Food is also an important component. By terminating this agreement, Russia has single-handedly blocked one of the most crucial routes, export routes from Ukraine. And this will and this should definitely fuel the food price inflation globally. And as a heartless Indian farmer producing rice, you should be happy. A supply side inflation is in the offing. It's my money. It's my opportunity to make a lot of money. If I were a commodities trader, I will make a lot of money. That's perhaps the reason why you need to link economics even when you're trading in stock markets, on commodity markets, or whatever. So we saw how fiscal policy of the government plays around with inflation. How? In the form of higher taxes. We saw the example of Misfits. From 18% to 9%, experience would have been much cheaper. In the form of government spending, we saw in the example of MNREGA. In the form of export bans, we saw the example of non-basmati rice. That's why these classes are important, because I will be linking it with current affairs and global affairs. And in time to come, you should be loving reading those newspapers. This 45 minutes will be a fun time for you, because you will understand the concepts, the bark linkages, the story, and the impacts that are created. The point is simple. If you're not having fun in this entire UPSC preparation, you won't clear it. You need to love this experience. It's a long drawn process. Every day has to be an exciting day. So let's come back to monetary policy. So when we discuss fiscal policy, you should play the role of Prime Minister of India. But when we discuss monetary policy, you play a different role. And that role is the role of RBI governor. Yes, what are any thoughts?
Hey Naman, hey everyone. So I just wanted to try to add this point, how government can control the inflation. So can we at this point, government when try to borrow from the market through the tools like bonds and securities.
Hold on. See, economics is a vast subject, and there are so many ways we can teach you this. My request is for the next few days, just grasp concepts. Of course, you will have your own editions, and those are right editions. But if I were to discuss all those points, we will lose the track. There has to be some structure to what we are studying and why we are studying at this stage. Your points are very well valid. We can, of course, discuss capital markets in detail. But then if you discuss everything, you will lose grasp of main concepts. Just for a few weeks, stay patient, learn whatever is being taught. And in time to come, you yourself will become experts. Okay. So I will resist taking too many questions in your own benefit. In history lessons, I took so many questions because it was adding to learning. But in this case, it can perhaps deteriorate your learning experience. If there's any concept that you have not learned, watch it. You have access to recordings. Take notes, diligent notes, as and when you're progressing in classes. Now let me come back to the discussion on point. So like I said, fiscal policy, you play the role of Prime Minister of India. Monetary policy, you play a different role of the RBI governor. Because as an RBI governor, it is your responsibility to control inflation. Such a hard task. As a Prime Minister, it's a political mandate. But here it's RBI governor, it's a responsibility. And both of you will do it by controlling supply of money in the economy. What is money? What is money? We'll do a detailed discussion on money later. The important question should not be what is money at this stage. At this stage, consider money to be paper note in your wallet, and of course in your bank account. Of course, it's much more than that. We'll cover that in time to come, don't worry. Let's move on to this question. How is money supply controlled in the economy? So money that we have in our wallet, in our bank accounts, how its supply is controlled in the economy? Okay, Alvezi?
So through monetary policy, I think it increased the interest rate like repo rate, reverse repo rate, and also some of the terms of economics they use to control it.
Okay. Rohit?
Yeah, I think we can do by making money not cheaper, like increase.
Explain this as if you're talking to a 5-year-old kid. Don't use complicated language, making money cheaper, or repo rate, reverse repo rate. Swati?
Well, I was going to use complicated language, but I think, to explain it to a 5-year-old, we can say, what was your question again?
What do you think? Listen very carefully.
Yeah, it was about, credit control, right? I was thinking along that line. So I think to control, we can say that to a 5-year-old, we can say that to control the notes you have in your wallet, we can say that, government takes some measures like, like physically physically control money, you have qualitative methods, and then you have quantitative methods, and then you have qualitative methods.
Exactly. So this is how you will be taught in classes. There's some qualitative methods, quantitative methods, and that is exactly the method I will not use in the classes today. I will, of course, teach you all the concepts, but I don't want to follow that methodology. Good, good. Of course, in classes, you will come across repo rate, open market operations, you will cram those things. But that cramming will not take you anywhere. You'll forget it in some time. I want you to attend these classes and remember things forever. So money is, of course, what we're seeing, sensing. Notes in our wallet, bank account. Controlling the money supply in the economy, one of the key components of the monetary policy. It should be there, drilled down in your head now. If it is a key component of monetary policy, controlling the supply of money, who will be at the helm of controlling it? Central bank, Reserve Bank in case of India. What is RBI? So while designing this class, I decided to browse through RBI's website. And that website tells us what it is. RBI itself tells us that RBI is India's central bank. It's a regulatory body. Responsible for what? Responsible for regulating Indian banking system. It also mentions that it is under the ownership of Ministry of Finance, Government of India. I'm just picking up stuff from what RBI has itself written on its own website. What is its responsibility? Its responsibility is to control the supply of Indian rupees. Its responsibility is to issue currencies. See how important it is to maintain and control the supply of Indian rupees. You can create havoc. You can create heaven by controlling the supply of money in the economy. More money in the economy, inflation. Less money in the economy, deflation. Both have consequences. So monetary policy is all about controlling supply of money in the economy. It is via controlling the supply of money in the economy you can target inflation rate. It is via controlling the supply of money in the economy you can ensure price stability and perhaps general trust in the currency. In fact, many of the macroeconomic objectives, be it consumption, investment, growth, directly linked to how money is there being controlled in the economy. And therefore, it's not a surprise that more than 20% of UPSC paper, this is historical empirical evidences, will test you on this skill. How does money supply affect inflation? Can anyone tell me and give an example? Think in first principles. No need to think about the fact that you have never studied economics. Just think from first principles with no biases. There were no pre-reads. How can money supply play its own role? Ishan?
So by increasing the money supply, inflation will tend to rise over the period of time. And by decreasing the money supply in the economy, inflation will tend to either there will be an onset of deflation or inflation will tend to curb down in the economy.
So Ishan, let's imagine that there is 100 kgs of rice in the economy. Although it's not realistic, we all know this. But let's assume that the entire economy produces 100 kilos of rice only. Okay, Sean? And you are the RBI governor. You supply rupees 100 in the economy. We will talk about various tools that you will use in time to come. So, entire economy produces 100 kilos of rice only. And Ishan as RBI governor, you have supplied 100 rupees in the economy. And in such an ideal scenario, we can say that 1 kilo of rice costs 1 rupees. Now let's assume that the output remains the same. What is the output in this case, Ishan? Rice.
100 kgs of rice.
Yeah. Let's say that remains the same. But then as an RBI governor, you do some magic. And as part of that magic, you increase the money supply to rupees 100. Earlier it was 100, right? Now it will be 200. You now increase the money supply to 200 from 100. What will happen now?
The price of per kg rice will become 2 rupees.
Yeah, because there is more money chasing the exact same amount of goods. It will surely lead to inflation. Because the output is still 100 kilos. But total money in the economy is 200. So 1 kilo of rice will now cost 2 rupees per kg. The prices have increased from 1 rupees to 2 rupees. That's an inflation of what? How many percentage? 100%. This has not just increased the price of a vital food commodity. Listen to this. This has not just increased the price of a vital, a very important food commodity. But think about the repercussions this can now have. This economic crisis will soon turn into a social crisis. Why? Because people will not be able to afford food. They will protest. With protest, there can be law and order problems. The social problem can then perhaps lead to political crisis. And we are seeing this happen in 21st century world. What is happening in Pakistan today? Former Prime Minister Imran Khan arrested. Supreme Court of Pakistan could not do anything. Economic growth has been stalled. Inflation has reached enormous levels. Because of that because of all these things, Pakistani rupees have depreciated. When the Pakistani rupee depreciates, what will happen next? The foreign currency reserves will dwindle. Because of that, Pakistan is struggling to import now essential products like food. I was watching a YouTube video where an actual stampede took place in the distribution center. So many people chasing that food commodity. Throughout the country, there are nationwide protests. Throughout Pakistan, there are violent clashes. Civilians are fighting with security forces. Hundreds have died in these protests. International Monetary Fund, IMF, we'll talk about IMF in future classes, is saying that Pakistan is facing a very, very challenging situation today. And when investors listen to that, read that headline from IMF, what will they think? We should not engage in Pakistan or engage with Pakistan. This crisis will erode living standards of Pakistanis. Is it a new phenomenon? No. From French Revolution to Russian Revolution. When do these revolutions take place? The moment you have no food in your stomach. So as Prime Minister Modi ji, the best way to ensure that revolution does not take place in your country is people should have happily filled stomachs. Perhaps the Food Security Act in India was a way and means to ensure that. Governments can fall, revolutions can take place if you cannot control the supply of money in the economy. And therefore, perhaps the post of RBI governor is one of the most important positions in India. And therefore, perhaps the post of central bank governor is supposed to be the most important post in that specific country. So this is the importance of controlling the money supply in economy. Repercussions could be terrible. Today India is doing well, who knows, 50 years down the line. So we all realize the importance of money supply in economy, but how does RBI do it? The preferred method, at least in normal times, is controlling the interest rates. Interest rates. What happens when interest rates are increased or raised? It will increase the cost of borrowing. Can anyone explain this? How can increased interest rates can increase the cost of borrowing? Yogita?
Okay. Hi everyone. So I think it is like so for example, if interest rate so lot we people deposit our money in the bank and we get loans. Like these people can also be the investors or the people who would want to build a business, right? So they for their capital they take loans from the banks. And if the RBI increases the interest rate, then the cost of borrowing for them increases. And yeah, this is the cost.
Things are not that simple. It didn't happen with during COVID-19 in Europe and the US. But good attempt. And I think you are correct in at least theoretically. So whenever interest rates are increased, cost of borrowing increases. Let's assume that I have zero money. And now I have to buy an iPhone. And I also don't want to sell my kidney. How can I buy an iPhone? I might go to the bank. Give me some money. If I get money, and for that, of course, bank will not give you at 0% interest rates. If bank were to give me at 0% interest rates, I would love it. I would want that. But I'm not Vijay Mallya. But if I get money from bank at higher interest rates, I will of course hate it. And there's a high likelihood, because of my credibility that I have zero money, that interest rates will be very high. And then this will dissuade me from borrowing money from the bank. In effect, I'm borrowing less. If I borrow less, if I don't borrow at all, there will be less money changing the hands. I will not have the money to buy the iPhone. No money got changed. One very unique feature about money that you must remember from here on is that its quantity increases in the economy as it changes hands. You should remember this. It will become very clear to you in time to come. Quantity of money increases in the economy as it changes more hands, unlike the rice. Rice quantity will remain the same, but money is like love. Spread love, its quantity will keep on increasing. So just remember this fact for now. The quantity of money increases in the economy as it changes more hands. Does not happen with rice. In case of rice, if say 100 kgs are produced by a farmer and he sells to someone, let's say trader, and then that trader sells it to the consumer, the total output still remains the same. That's 100 kg. But think about money. When RBI produces 100 rupees or prints 100 rupees, gives that to bank will lend that 100 rupees to someone, and that someone will then pay you some money. Total money increases to 300, doesn't remain 100. Remember this fact for now. We'll do detailed discussions. But when the borrowing cost rises, you will borrow less. When you borrow less, what happens? Less money changing the hands. So the money supply decreases. When money supply decreases, inflation decreases. Ranbir, what will happen if you decrease interest rates?
I think if
What will
interest
happen to the
rates
borrowing
are
cost?
it will increase because you have less interest rate to give, so you will borrow more to
So it will decrease borrowing
capitalize
cost.
or
That's what I asked. Good. So if you decrease interest rates, it will decrease the borrowing cost. When interest rates are 0%, I'm borrowing a lot of money for my Apple iPhone. What will happen in such a scenario? More money changing hands. So money supply increases, inflation increases. All this is an idealized scenario. In reality, effects are not as fast as we see here. In many cases, interest rates may not even serve as primary tool of money supply. Can you think of any example? When interest rates or playing around with interest rates did not serve as a primary tool of money supply. Angad?
So, what I can think of is at the time of COVID pandemic. At that time, interest rates were lower, and the government was into this so as to create more demand. They were decreasing the interest rates, but still people were so scared to spend their money on normal commodities because of high health expenditure, which was incurring in the families and everything. So people were very scared. They kept money tight in their hands.
Yeah, very good. When the COVID-19 pandemic hit, what happened? It caused severe economic downturn worldwide. We all know that. Ideally, what would central bank do in such case? Central bank. I'm not talking about RBI for now. Central bank. The Federal Reserve of the US and the European Central Bank, they quickly cut interest rates to near zero levels. Not kidding. In fact, Reserve Bank of India also slashed its repo rate to historic low. What is repo rate? We'll talk about it in some time, but for now, just remember that repo rate is the rate at which the country's central bank lends money to commercial bank. Now, what are commercial banks? Commercial banks are the banks that you and I interact with, SBI, HDFC. Commercial banks are financial institutions that provide a variety of services to individuals, to businesses, to even government entities. accepting deposits, providing loans, credit facilities, investment services, locker deposits, these days internet banking services. In broader context of economy, commercial banks play a very important role. They are like sophisticated dalals that you will meet on the streets of old Rajendra Nagar. I'm glad that none of you are in that depressing place. I hope so. Like a dalal in old Rajendra Nagar who acts as an intermediary, commercial banks also functions as intermediary. Dalal is an intermediary between you and the owner of the house, takes a cut in between. In this case, bank scheduled commercial banks are financial intermediaries. What do? They channel the funds from savers or those who deposit money in the bank, to borrowers, those who need funds for various purposes. And that's how they contribute to economic activities. Do these commercial banks operate without any regulations? No. RBI regulates them and their activities. But I don't know how good these regulations were when Nirav Modi, Vijay Mallya, Mehul Choksey were running scams. So what is repo rate? Repo rate is the rate at which country's central bank lends money to commercial banks. Very important tool used in monetary policy to manage supply in the economy, to manage money supply in the economy, and possibly control the inflation in the economy. So when COVID-19 pandemic hit, it caused several economic downturn worldwide. Federal Reserve in the US, European Central Bank, they quickly cut interest rates to near zero levels. RBI in India also slashed its repo rate, like I said. It was a historic low. But the magnitude of that economic shock, COVID-19, was such that this conventional policy tool did not work well. It was insufficient to restore economic stability. And therefore, many central banks had to resort to many unconventional monetary policy tools. For instance, in the US, there was a large-scale asset purchase program referred to as quantitative easing, QE. Through that program, Federal Reserve in the US bought large amounts of government and corporate bonds, injected money directly into the economy. That was the time, COVID-19 was the time, including during financial crisis, similar story. But COVID-19 recent example was a time when that tool did not serve as the primary tool for controlling the money supply in the economy. Instead, a direct intervention was required. So in extraordinary times, banks may need to go beyond traditional policy tools like interest rates. What happened in the US is not exclusive to Federal Reserve there. Even Reserve Bank of India has certain tools. Many a times, economic conditions may be so bad that despite the ultra low interest rates, borrowers are still not willing to borrow because they know wherever they invest, they will lose money. So a commercial bank may not borrow from RBI despite ultra low interest rates. Because at commercial bank, HDFC, SBI, they know if it borrows and lends to some person who want to set up industry, that person will not be able to repay their loans, lost money. So despite the low interest rates, evidences do exist. Money supply may not increase. In such scenario, in such situations, RBI resort to directly pumping money in the economy. How does it do it? They buy government securities. What is that? Twinkle?
So the central government at times issues securities to finance various projects. So these are also called treasury bonds, and they have like a fixed rate of interest. So when RBI buys back the securities from the
Hold
general
on.
public.
So let's say that you, Twinkle, you are holding a 2-year government bond worth ₹100. It's a piece of paper. It's not money. It's just a piece of paper. But that paper is important because it can be exchanged into money. How?
I can either sell it to someone else, or when the government wants to buy it back through the RBI, I'll sell it to the
Depends
RBI.
upon the conditions of the bond. But yes, RBI can also buy, will buy, and can buy that bond from you, and you get your ₹100. But next question, Twinkle, is where does the RBI get this ₹100 to buy it from you?
Through its own reserves.
It will print money.
But printing money would lead to inflation.
I know.
So
They can print money. They simply print money.
Oh.
And with that, money supply in the economy will go up. What is RBI doing? Controlling money supply in the economy. And when RBI takes this call, it does so independently. Ideally, that is how it should be. Our RBI governor does not take decisions keeping Jerome Powell in mind, the US Fed Reserve head. After all, every country is independent. We want RBI to follow a monetary policy which serves India's interest at best, not American or British interests. And when RBI takes that decision independently, that policy is termed as independent monetary policy. So what we'll do now, basis whatever we have studied, the best way would be to look at few questions that UPSC prelims has asked. I've picked up questions from the papers that were recently conducted in 2022, 2021. So just read through this. I'll ask someone to explain the answer. Let's solve the first question. You can take screenshots if you want to. So this was a question asked in 2022. There are 3 statements. All right, so who will explain? Samisha, go on. What's the answer?
So the correct statement would be 2 and 3, because the first statement is incorrect, which says that if the inflation is too high, then the RBI would sell government securities. That's the statement, right?
Yeah, the statement is if inflation is too high, Reserve Bank of India is likely to buy government securities.
Yes, yeah. So that is correct, because if the government bank or the Central Bank of India buys government securities, then it is putting in money into the market, and if there is more money in the market, then inflation would rise even more. So instead of buying the government securities, it should sell government securities in order to curb inflation. That is why the first statement is incorrect.
Yeah.
And if we eliminate that, then 3 options are eliminated and we come to the 4th option.
Okay, good. If inflation is too high, how will RBI try to control it? Forget about inflation. Forget about definitions. Remember a rise example. I can assure you, you can answer economics question in UPSC, be it in prelims or mains, commonsensically, if you know some concepts. When we increase the supply of money from rupees 100 to 200, what happens? There was 100% inflation. So how can we bring down the price of rice? By reducing the supply of money. Because the moment you reduce the supply of money, prices will fall down. If RBI buys government securities from you, what will happen? It will have to print new rupees and hand those new rupees to you in exchange for government securities. So this will increase money supply instead of reducing it. RBI will not go for it. Statement 1 is clearly wrong. And out of 4 options, only option B had that statement. So obviously B is the correct answer. In time to come, you will understand the meaning of other options as well. Even if you knew this simple concept, that I hope you will not forget from here on, you can easily get 2 marks in a UPSC paper. We will be solving only UPSC official papers. There's no need to solve useless, ridiculous questions by random coaching institutes. Will only increase your anxieties. Preparing for UPSC examination, not that test service examination, whatever that is. Simple question, free 2 marks. We'll discuss other concepts that will help you understand other options as well. But yes, just with one concept, and by reading the question carefully, you can get free 2 marks. And believe me, there are so many UPSC aspirants who learned everything and they made blunders in the eventual examination, could not curb their anxiety, could not stay calm. That's not the trait of a leader. Let's look at another question. This was again asked in 2022. Saurabh, what's the answer?
Sir, Reserve Bank of India.
Yeah, simple
Because
question. Why?
because Reserve Bank of India control the monetary policy.
I think there is one more question that you can solve. Just give me a second. Everyone is clear, right, with the answer? I don't think you need an explanation. One of the main tasks for RBI is to control inflation. It does so how? Via controlling money in the economy. Do not get confused with anything else. I think this question was asked in 2021. Let's look at it. think I did not check the. Let me just do it again. Hold on. Correct codes are missing in that option, so you will not be able to solve it. Okay, let's give it a try now. Do not get scared if you are not able to understand few of the terms here. I can assure you, you can still get this answer correct. This was ours in 2021. Should we solve it? Let's take 10 more seconds. Okay, Amanpreet, what's the answer? And why is that the answer?
So the first option, because in the last option, rising interest rates, I guess this is wrong because this is talking about demand pull. So we would like to increase the demand. Increasing the interest rates would reduce the demands. So that would not be an option. So eliminating the last option, I guess the first option is the correct. 1 to 4. No.
Yeah.
The first option. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. See, we have already seen that if RBI increases interest rates, it will reduce the supply of money. And hence will control inflation or increase it. So clearly, statement 5 is incorrect. And if you look at the options, there's only one option which does not have 5. What's the answer? It's A. Of course, in our future economy episodes, we will of course revisit this question to understand and analyze other options as well. But economy is really simple. Unnecessarily, we make it complicated because we don't have the patience. There's another concept that I'm a little concerned now if I will have the time to explain it, because it's an important concept. We have approximately 20 minutes. By the way, is there anyone, any doubts? This was simple. Rohit, watch it out.
Yeah, sir, I have a question. So earlier you mentioned that inflation leads to unemployment, right?
See, first and foremost, may lead to, not will lead to. So let's use these words cautiously.
Sure, sir. Because I was thinking in a different perspective. So if there is a little inflation in the market, so farmer gets
We'll talk about
good
inflation in
returns.
detail. Don't stress about it. We just introduce this. We'll do it in detail. We'll study various curves. Why are those important? We'll do the analysis of what happens to other side of story. So don't stress about it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Zoya, what's your question?
I didn't understand. If you could please repeat for me. So if there is inflation, how does RBI
What
control?
didn't you understand?
How does RBI control inflation? Like they're not going to pump in more money, so are they going to take back money? Sorry, I didn't get this.
How does RBI control inflation? Okay. Can anyone explain this to Zoya? I want to check. How would you explain that? Ishan, how would you do it?
When there's a rise in inflation, so RBI will try to reduce the money supply in the economy. So when you want to reduce the money supply in the economy, you can either increase the interest rates by which you can make borrowings more expensive. So it'll be more expensive for someone to borrow money. And that way RBI can, that is one of the methods. The other method would be RBI would go on selling government securities. So when RBI sells government securities, people will buy government securities and eventually people will have less money to spend on their own because they've already bought government securities. And that will also reduce money supply in the economy.
Okay. One thing that I want to say out loud is it's not just Zoya. I think there will be many. Zoya just had the courage to ask her question. There will be some of you who wouldn't have grasped the concept for whatever reasons. Perhaps you lost the concentration. Happens. Very new subject. My only request would be, before you attend tomorrow's class, watch the recording. Take notes. It will become very clear to you. I know that. If I were to explain this again, or Ishan were to explain this, or Twinkle were to explain this, anyone were to explain this, we'll just confuse. You explained this in the class, watch the recordings. It should become very clear to you. Just focus on the classes for this. I think I will resist the urge to teach you a new concept because I don't want the newbies to be overburdened with so many new things. I was thinking of showing you the yield curve of Pakistan and their banks and compare that with India and show you, discuss with you the observations. But before I do that, I think let's take a break. I don't want to overburden you. So please make sure that you watch the recording again. It should be clear to you. Okay? We close this class today early in your own benefit. I wish you all the best and see you all tomorrow. But do understand economics. You can't study in silos. Keep on linking things. From Black Sea Grains Initiative to Prime Minister Modi ji's decision to ban a few things. Economics should always be intertwined with politics. Many times, good economics is termed to be bad politics. And you will be working very closely with politicians, taking decisions that benefit the economy. How will you navigate it? How will you explain them the consequences? Therefore, don't study things in silos, especially economics. Okay? Watch the recording again for all those who are not familiar with economics. And for all those who have been pro at this, next few classes, including this one, will be slow classes. It's for the benefit of everyone. Okay? All the best, everyone. Good luck. See you tomorrow.